Welcome back. Managing Director of Jamari & Sons and former independent Senator Evristus Jamari has indicated that any pay cuts being proposed, whether directly or indirectly, will be seen as social injustice done to the public sector.
Managing Director of Jamari & Sons, Evristus Jamari, is calling out the government on what he sees as a social injustice. He says given the circumstances being presented by COVID-19, he understands the need for sacrifice. However, persons who are less well off should not be the sacrificial lambs. He said the government's first move should not have been the discussion of possible pay cuts for the public sector.
It's a social justice issue. In a situation like that, you want sacrifices to be made. But sacrifices have to be made where people, those with the greater capacity to make it, should be asked to make it.
Jamari says the government needs to show some level of commitment to its people, particularly given the situation being faced.
You show some commitment to assist your people. That's the first responsibility of a government, to look after the well-being of its people. First responsibility. So when things get rough, you look for your people first. They're not the first ones to be making sacrifice to accommodate people from outside.
He says the very principle applicable to bank moratoriums should apply to creditors as they have the greater capacity. He says work can be done to have debt rolled over given that the country is faced with an unusual situation.
In the same way you ask banks to give individuals a break on their mortgages and on their loans because they have a greater capacity to do so, I think the same principles apply in terms of the country and its international lenders. You cannot ask public servants to give up their salary so that you can pay creditors. I think because the creditors have far greater capacity than public servants, and it's just unfair. So what can be done to explain to creditors? It's an unusual situation. I think lenders will have to understand that. It's not, the government has been faced like all governments with a very critical situation, and that they should just roll over some of that debt and wait until things get better.
Jamari says certain projects should be ceased because it could be said that cuts are being made to fund said projects. He, however, indicated that it would be irresponsible for the government to seek infinite debt to pay workers, but is very adamant that the initial move should have never been proposed pay cuts. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
COVID-19 has demonstrated the vulnerabilities of most countries, particularly underdeveloped and developing states. The most relied on sector, tourism, is no more, and other sectors are now tasked with ensuring the revival of the economy. The manufacturing sector in St. Lucia says it is ready to take up this responsibility.
The Executive Director of the St. Lucia Manufacturers Association, Paula James, has indicated that due to the current economic situation resulting from COVID-19, the manufacturing and processing sector of St. Lucia will be faced with numerous challenges, but stands ready to take up the task of resuscitating the economy.
Oh, there's a huge future for manufacturing right now, huge. Because I strongly believe that the sector, along with maybe construction, may have to take the brunt of trying to rejuvenate the economy.
James says such a situation drives home the point that food security is a problem in many economies. She does, however, believe that the local manufacturing and processing sector has the potential and space for growth even during such trying times.
I looked at the US just last week, and almost 6 of their largest processing plants are shut down. And then I looked at Canada, had an issue with potatoes, Irish potatoes, and I'm saying, oh my gosh, this is coming more to the fore with food security, because we now really have to seriously look at our farmers, our manufacturers, our producers, even our service providers, because we have actually seen just like that. We have a fantastic delivery sector that has just kicked in with a service. Because everybody had a Facebook and a phone number, pack my fruits, pack my juice, I will deliver, pack my bread. So you have a service that just came up without any planning, no discussion.
James stated that the process, which has to be followed, will allow for products to be at a standard where they are ready for both local consumption and export. She is pleased to note the steps being made toward greater technological advances in sectors that work codependently with manufacturing. like agriculture, for example. She says this will augur well for the entire country.
Former Minister for Sustainable Development Dr. James Fletcher says a short-term stimulus package for the manufacturing sector is commendable but not enough. He is calling for a total recalibration of the economy where manufacturing is made more competitive by driving down the cost of production through clean energy initiatives.
The country is looking to the manufacturing sector to be the dark horse in the race to deal with the economic fallout of COVID-19. Government has announced that a short-term stimulus will be rolled out to the benefit of the manufacturing sector. It is a move that former Sustainable Development Minister Dr. James Fletcher says is a commendable start, but is also just a short-term fix for a sector that requires long-term interventions. The fact of the matter, he says, is that the cost of production is crippling the local manufacturing sector and not allowing its players to be as competitive as they need to be on the world market.
In St. Lucia, our manufacturers pay anything around 40 US cents per kilowatt hour. So that's like 6 times more expensive. Energy is 6 times more expensive in St. Lucia than it is in Trinidad. So for me, dealing with the manufacturing sector is not just whatever short-term stimulus you could provide to the manufacturing sector to help it ride out the storm. But it is how do we make that manufacturing sector viable so that it now becomes competitive in the long run. And the way you make the manufacturing sector competitive in the long run is to bring down its cost of production.
Dr. Fletcher says the most important cost of production that this country has control over is that of energy. It is for this reason that he is clamoring for government to accelerate the renewable energy program. He says the excess supply and low demand that has driven petroleum prices down of late will not last, and oil prices will go back up. An island such as St. Lucia, he says, should not have to be fully dependent on imported petroleum.
If you can now produce more of your energy from the sun that is all around us, and boy, we don't need to see sun more than we're seeing sun right now, from the wind that is all around us, if you can produce more of our energy from sun and wind, which would allow us to have a stable, low price for energy, our manufacturers then become more competitive because instead of paying 40 US cents or a dollar EC for every kilowatt hour of energy that they have to buy in order to keep their manufacturing going, if we can bring that down to half the price, let's say 20 US cents per kilowatt hour, we immediately make our manufacturing more competitive. And for me, and if we can bring geothermal into the mix, then that drives up the cost down even more.
The local manufacturing sector has been growing from strength to strength and makes a significant contribution to GDP. In fact, statistics show that the manufacturing sector in St. Lucia added more than $50.1 million US to the country's gross domestic product in 2018.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Sports and weather are coming up after the break.